Welcome to Hawk Mountain Conservation Corps' Northwoods Expedition film. My name is Todd Bauman, I'm Director of Stewardship at Hawk Mountain Sanctuary. The Hawk Mountain Conservation Corps, better known as HMCC, was based on a service learning approach to engage local young people in conservation. Service learning is defined as an educational approach that combines meaningful volunteer work with instruction and reflection that, when combined, enriches the experience, teaches civic responsibility and leadership, encourages lifelong civic commitment, and helps build stronger communities. What that definition means is the Corps members learn by doing, and at Hawk Mountain Sanctuary, that meant getting hands-on and dirty lessons. The emphasis of the program was to develop skills in land management and conservation field skills. The idea was not necessarily to turn out wildlife biologists and land stewards, even though a few did lean that direction, but to instill a conservation ethic for their lifetime. How did this program come about? Well, I have always been enamored with the Lewis and Clark expedition and how it really was a scientific expedition termed the Corps of Discovery. To complete this monumental feat of trekking across an unknown North America, it took all the wood smart and backbreaking work of all the team members. One of the ultimate stories of true collaboration for a scientific goal. I always thought a program based on applying techniques and practices in the field would be great for young adults. This idea applied to drawing Corps members from within the local community made for a good fit for the sanctuary and its surrounding community. The trial group was easily obtained while I was leading a guided hike. I had some family groups on the hike. I'm a father of 3, so I quickly turned my attention to a couple of younger members of the hikers, coming up with a little map and compass work and a field journaling exercise. When the hike was over, 3 of them asked if there was anything else like this they could get involved in. Thus, my idea of the sanctuary's own Corps of Discovery was born. I want to thank Tom Kerr, who was serving as interim president in granting the program initiation, and I also want to thank Ed Baldridge and his company, Baldridge Asset Management, for the first donation that got it underway. Now, how were the members recruited? Well, that was kind of easy, actually. If someone at the age of 14 could pick up a phone and call me to discuss their interests and set up a meeting, they were over halfway selected. The next step was a house call interview to tell them more about the hard work that was expected if they wanted into the program. It was only after this interaction did the new member and I speak to the parents about the program. Reason for this is what was being asked was not for everyone, especially a teenager. So they needed to be the one that wanted it, not their parents. So this program was not about outdoor adventure education. It was not about learning how to go camping, backpacking, or canoeing. It was about learning to be a leader and a problem solver by getting to work. It was about instilling conservation values through teaching and conducting conservation field skills. It was about appreciating what was in our backyard and that the field of wildlife conservation can never have a big enough yard.
Hi, my name is Noah Rauch, Sanctuary Steward here at Hawk Mountain and former HMCC veteran. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about what it meant to be a member of the Hawk Mountain Conservation Corps. Being a part of the HMCC called for each member to commit time out of their year to help with projects on the sanctuary, including trail work and invasive species control, and also to commit to at least one spike camp per year. Spike camps consisted of 3 to 4 day stints where the Corps assisted in larger projects taking place on the sanctuary. Examples of these projects can be seen at Hawk Mountain's Irma Bruin-Kahn Education Building Interpretive Trail, and on the restoration projects of Hawk Mountain's Skyline Trail. Through completing work like this, Corps members learn various skills and best management practices of a forested setting. Members also develop field skills through implementation and practice, including basic orienteering, native and invasive species identification, and riparian corridor navigation, to name a few. Outside of highlining boulders for trail reconstruction, visiting and assisting at bird banding stations, and generally advancing our skill set in the great outdoors, HMCC members were also involved in outreach and service to the local community. Through completing conservation work off of sanctuary grounds and by giving presentations to promote our efforts, members helped to further the mission of Hawk Mountain Sanctuary. As a veteran member of the Corps, I can attest to the fact that the HMCC program helped to foster in me a deep sense of appreciation and ethic for conservation, community, and collaboration. It involved education through action and dedication, and in retrospect, the amount that we as Corps members learned in terms of not only forest stewardship and conservation, but also in teamwork and camaraderie through this program is truly remarkable. Without giving too much away before the film, let me say that the Northwoods Expedition was one of the most invaluable experiences of my lifetime. To experience a place deemed truly wild in the name of conservation science, research, and service with a team of like-minded individuals was an adventure of the most genuine sense. It was an opportunity to put to the test all of the skills we had acquired through our time with the HMCC. On behalf of all HMCC members, mentors, supporters, and Hawk Mountain Sanctuary, I would like to extend our thanks for tuning in with us to experience this epic journey. Now, without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy HMCC, the Northwoods Expedition.
Greetings to the Hawk Mountain Conservation Corps Northwoods Expedition film. The mission of Hawk Mountain Sanctuary Association is to conserve birds of prey worldwide by providing leadership in raptor conservation science and education, and by maintaining Hawk Mountain Sanctuary as a model observation, research, and education facility. The Hawk Mountain Conservation Corps aids the Land and Facilities Department in meeting the latter part of our mission, maintaining the sanctuary as a model conservation organization. They achieve this by assisting on land management tasks, utilizing current best management practices in trail building and maintenance, and in invasive species management. A brief background on this program. It is based on a service learning approach whereas the members are challenged with real-life tasks, and through collaboration, learn how to overcome those challenges, delivering a completed project to professional standards. An example of this can be easily found in our interpretive trail at our Irma Bruin Kahn Education Building. This particular group of young adults were the key workforce in achieving this monumental project using native materials. Several tons of native stone were moved into place and native vegetation was replanted, meeting best management practices in project management in a forested landscape. Another component of this program is to provide experience in conservation field skills. The members are exposed to many skills required by conservation professionals, such as wildlife identification, bird trapping and banding, field navigation, and disciplines in riparian ecology. This knowledge, combined with extensive experience in wildland travel, provides them a well-rounded exposure to what is expected in a conservation career. Now, about the Northwoods Expedition. After the team perfects these various skills over their years of service at the sanctuary, there's a kind of final test in the form of a scientific service expedition. What you are about to see is a glimpse of this team's final exam. So, please, sit back and appreciate the hard work and talent of our conservation future in the hands and hearts of these young Hawk Mountain Sanctuary ambassadors.
So prior to embarking on the trip, each member was tasked with a topic to research for their interview portion of the documentary. This meant conducting interviews of our own, reading up on conservation history, and also doing our best to prepare for a documentary-style interview in a remote setting.
Conserving wildlife is very important in today's society. When you conserve wildlife, you protect and preserve large amounts of land that are specifically devoted to plant and animal species that inhabit that area. Aldo Leopold is one of the driving forces behind the wilderness movement and the formation of the Wilderness Society. He is commonly known as the father of wildlife conservation. He created the idea of land ethic, which enlarges the boundaries of the community to soils, waters, plants, and animals. The Wilderness Act of 1964 was signed into law by Lyndon B. Johnson, and it was a result of a long effort to protect federal wilderness. This piece of legislation protected over 9.1 million acres of land and now protects over 109.5 million acres of land. Richard Poe was one of the founders of the Nature Conservancy, which led to the establishment of many acres of land and nature preserves from Florida to Maine and all the way out west to Arizona. Right now I'm sitting in the center of Bethany Lake Wilderness Area, which is the Nature Conservancy of Maine's largest land holdings, and is also approximately 50,000 acres. This is part of the Katahdin Forest Project. Prior to the founding of the Nature Conservancy, in 1933, Richard Poe found all the dead hawks at Hawk Mountain. and took pictures of them and circulated them throughout the Emergency Conservation Committee, where eventually Rosalie Edge found them and took action and protected thousands of acres of land at Hawk Mountain.
I'm out here in the Tuscany Lake Wilderness area, near some mist nets we have set up to catch saw-whet owls. We're attempting to ban some. So far we haven't had much luck. We had a little activity the past night that we were out, a few calls back, but no luck catching any yet. We're hoping to catch some to collect data in order to relay it back to Project Owlnet. We're also out here with a bander that works in relation to them named Emily Thomas. Project Owlnet is a large science project coordinated across North America, which consists of around 125 banding stations. We're looking for things like flight speed, flight patterns, also airways that the birds are using throughout North America. Like I said, we're going to be relaying the data back to Project Owlnet. So I spoke with Scott Weidensaw on the topic of saw-whet owls. He gave me an example of a bird that was banded in Vermont, and a week later it was caught again in Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, and then again in Maryland. Things we learned from that bird would be like the flight pattern that it took to get all the way from Vermont to Maryland, as well as like the flyway that it used to get from one place to another. So we set up one banding station near camp, and then another station across the lake from camp. So we usually have teams of 4 to 5 on each side, where we set up poles and nets and an audio lure, which then hopefully will call in some birds. Like I said, we had some activity, but we haven't caught any yet. So despite the challenges, it means a lot to myself and also my fellow Corps members to be a part of this expedition and to further the knowledge of this species.
Hi there, welcome to our 4th camp here on Moose Island, part of the Pemminucook Lake. I'm going to take you through our route over the last couple days through the Depskinny Lake Wilderness area. So we first started out on Monday, 5 days ago, at A-Ball campsite or A-Ball Bridge, and went down the west branch of the Penobscot River. The west branch of the Penobscot River wasn't without its challenges. We had 3 portages on the west branch, and what I mean by portages, they're rough areas or rapid areas or waterfalls where we actually couldn't take these canoes down. So what we had to do was pull into shore, unload our canoes, walk all of our gear in our canoes around these rough areas, and then load everything back up into our canoes. So we had to do that 3 times on the west branch of the Penobscot. The largest one of these portages was at Depskinny Falls, where we had probably about 3/4 of a mile where we had to take our gear around Depskinny Falls. After getting down about 6 miles on the west branch of the Penobscot River, we made a western dogleg into the first Depskinny Lake. And there at the first Depskinny Lake, we paddled about 2 miles across the lake and made our camp on the western shore. After our camp on the western shore, we had a 0.7 mile canoe portage overland to get to the second Depskinny Lake. And I want to take a second to talk about these canoe portages. So if you look at all these boats here, we have 10 people, so 5 boats, 2 people per boat. There's a lot of gear here to carry. So each boat weighs about 70 pounds on average. And in the water, they're great in the water. They carry a lot of gear very easily, but over land, they're quite difficult because these boats have to go on our shoulders, and then we have to navigate through tight forest trails. So 70 pounds on your shoulders with the boats, but that's not the end of it. Then you have your paddles, and you have your PFDs, and you have all of the other associated rescue equipment that has to go along with these boats. So that adds up to quite a bit of weight. Along with the boats, canoes, and paddles, and all of that, we have our personal equipment. So 10 people each have their own bag, and each bag weighs roughly 40 pounds. So again, we're up to 400 pounds just in personal equipment, plus the boats and all the associated equipment. On top of that, we're out here for 5 days, so we need all of our food and cooking equipment. And the food roughly is about 6 pounds per person per day, which adds up to over 300 pounds of food that we have to carry. So we're over 700 pounds just in personal gear and food, along with our research equipment and other associated cooking gear and those kinds of things that we need just to keep us happy and healthy in the woods. I mean, we're talking close to over 1,000 pounds, and with the boats, we're about 1,500 pounds of gear that we have to move over land with each of these portages. So like I said, we had 3 portages our first day down the west branch of the Penobscot River. The second day, we just had 1.7 mile portage from the first Debscony Lake to the second Debscony Lake. And our third day, we had just a 0.3 mile portage from the second Debscony Lake to the third Debscony Lake. On the third Debscony Lake, we were afforded with favorable winds, and we actually lashed all of these boats together and put up a sail, and were able to sail across the third Debscony Lake, which was pretty neat. Given that we can only paddle about 3 miles an hour in loaded boats, and at times we were moving at 4.5 miles an hour with the wind power pushing our sails. So it was pretty neat that we went 2 to 3 miles without having to put our paddles in the water, minus just a little steering. After the third Debscony Lake, we had our longest portage, which was a mile or more, to get from the third Debscony Lake over to Pemmidunktuk Lake. And this was on forest road, so it was a little bit easier. It wasn't navigating through forest trail, but it was over a mile. So again, we had to move that 1,500 pounds of gear and equipment over a mile by our shoulders, which was quite difficult. After getting on to Pemmidunktuk Lake, we had about an hour and a half, 2-hour paddle to get to Moose Island here, which is, as you can see maybe in the video, in the shadow of Mount Katahdin, which is a beautiful campsite here. And then today our plan is to go from Moose Island back to our van, which is kind of setting on the Golden Road just outside the park, Baxter State Park. So again, it's quite a trip. A lot of portaging, a lot of carrying, a lot of research with the owls and songbirds. And in all, we traveled about 35 miles through remote terrain, carrying all of our equipment with us without any sort of resupply or outside help. So I think it's quite an expedition for Hawk Mountain Conservation. Thanks.
Biological monitoring is the continual examination of biological specimens taken from an environment, such as food, water, or air. And a little bit about biological monitoring history. Rachel Carson, she published a book titled Silent Springs in 1962, and she was credited with the whole global environmental movement. In her book, she wrote mostly about DDT and how it affected the environment and other detrimental effects to the environment. In connection to Hawk Mountain provided some of the data to Rachel Carson with DDT problems in terms of the raptor count. Since the banning of DDT, after Rachel Carson's book, Silent Springs, Hawk Mountain has recorded a high of 406 bald eagles at Hawk Mountain in 2010. One of our goals on this expedition was to collect data in a pristine region. The Debscony Lake Wilderness area contains the highest concentration of pristine remote ponds in New England, as well as thousands of acres of mature forest. Nearly half the forests in the Debscony Lake Wilderness area show no signs of past logging. Old, undisturbed forests like these are rich in diversity. The forest floor is covered with logs and mosses and ancient trees, whether standing or fallen, provide habitat for many woodland creatures. In relation to environmental health, Hawk Mountain Sanctuary founder Rosalie Edge said it best: "The time to save the species is while it's still calm."
The Hawk
Hawk Mountain Conservation Corps derives much of its programming from a similar organization from the Depression era. That would be the Civilian Conservation Corps. The CCC was started by President Franklin Roosevelt in the early 30s, and it was one of many programs designed to get Americans working and get them back on their feet after the stock market crash in '29. So CCC was unique to these other programs in that a lot of the work they did was focused heavily on conservation and environmental efforts, and a lot of their impact can still be seen today in states across the nation. In some ways, Hawk Mountain Conservation Corps continues the work that CCC did as a legacy today. An example of the work that HMCC does can be seen at Hawk Mountain's Education Center building, newly constructed. We did a lot of work on the interpretive trail that leads from the bus parking lot to the Education Center itself, so that students coming in on buses can have a nice picture as they come down the trail into the Education Center. We also do a lot of work in the community. Just recently, we visited Leaser Lake and constructed a Osprey bird nest platform for the ospreys to come and raise their young on the lake. Today, we are on Nature Conservancy land, building a boardwalk to improve access to some private boat launch area within the Nature Conservancy's land. Our contact at the Maine Nature Conservancy, Whitney Bush, emphasized the importance of this project because she believes that building community relations between locals and the Nature Conservancy is very important to their mission here in Maine. I know that I personally have gained much love and appreciation for nature through my time with Hawk Mountain Conservation Corps. Being out on the trail is something that I deeply enjoy, and conservation has become a hobby of mine. That's a hobby that I know I will carry with me for many years to come.
Hello, my name is Emily Thomas. I am an instructor in wildlife technology at Penn State Du Bois and a master bird bander. So we're here in the Nature Conservancy's Debscony Lakes Wilderness area. We have some nets set up right now to capture some birds. So over the past few days, we've been attempting to capture and ban northern saw-whet owls in the evenings and any songbirds passing through in the mornings. So we actually caught 3 birds this morning. And so what I wanted to tell you about was what it takes to become a bird bander. So I've actually been doing this for 10 years now. And to get a master bird banding permit, you have to have a lot of experience. So you have to prove that you can safely handle the birds, accurately age and sex them, and process them. And then you also have to have a worthwhile project. So there's many different reasons for bird banding. So it depends on what your objectives are. So banding is used in longevity studies. So seeing how long birds actually do live in the wild. Recapture information is fantastic. So with the Northern Saw-Whet Owl project, we get fantastic data on these birds' migration. You can take any type of blood, feather sample, etc., and get all kinds of different information from that. So lots of different reasons to do that.
Raptors need large wilderness areas to nest, and also for migration they use them as stopover habitat. We're up here in Baxter State Park, which is a great breeding ground for many raptors, including the Broadland Hawk, which we happen to have a nest behind us. And you might be able to hear some of the birds vocalizing. There's one right there. These birds just fledged, which is pretty special. Hawk Mountain Sanctuary was established as a migration corridor for raptors. Many of the raptors that we've been seeing here in Maine will be migrating past Hawk Mountain Sanctuary this fall. For instance, this family of Broadlands behind me will be traveling by Hawk Mountain mid to third week of September. Talking to Dr. Lori Goodrich at Hawk Mountain, she is currently doing research about broadwing hawks and their nesting habitat using many special things like satellite telemetry. During our expedition here in Maine, we've also encountered other habitats for many other birds. Being in the water of the Debscony Lake Wilderness area, we've seen many bald eagles and ospreys, and the surrounding habitat around those are also prime nesting grounds for goshawks and sharpshins. Protecting these large tracts of wilderness and surrounding habitat is very important for these species of raptors to thrive, to reproduce, to ensure that they will be available for future generations to monitor and enjoy.
So as the team climbs Mount Katahdin, the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail, I just want to give you a quick, brief itinerary of the journey. So the team left on an early Saturday morning from Hawk Mountain Sanctuary and drove up to Millinocket, Maine. We had a hotel room for both Saturday night and the Sunday night. Sunday was spent kind of coordinating and organizing for our immersion into the Debscony Lake Wilderness area. We were then spending from Monday to Friday navigating through that region. When we came out Friday, the TNC, the Nature Conservancy, hosted us in some service cabins for both Friday night and Saturday night. That is when we conducted our service. After that, we were hosted in Baxter State Park. For the one evening of Baxter State Park, we actually hosted, to kind of extend our ambassadorship, we hosted a program, a campfire program within the park. And then we had 2 days to pick our best weather day to climb Katahdin. And as you can see, we picked an exceptional day to climb.
Job throughout this trip was to film and edit the documentary that you're watching right now. Right now I'm in my school's TV studio. I go to Parkland High School and we have a really advanced TV studio for a high school. I am the director of the studio. I became the director at the end of last school year. And we do 2 daily newscasts, and we also participate in film festivals, and we also just entered the student Emmys. So we really do a lot of work here, and we learn a lot about films and documentaries as well as TV. Despite having all of that knowledge, I did have a really difficult time putting together this documentary. As far as filming it, we had to worry about weight, power, and also how to keep the equipment safe. So we took along 2 small camcorders, as well as I brought my own personal camera, which I planned to use only for taking pictures, and then several GoPros. And that was basically it. We had some extra batteries and not much else, a tripod. Also, we had to make sure that all of these cameras had enough charge. So one thing that became an issue was partway through, we decided to use my personal camera for some of the interviews, but since I'd only planned on using it for taking pictures, we actually ran out of charge partway through the trip. So that was another thing to balance. And also we had to keep everything safe. At one point in time, we were trying to do an interview and one camera died, another had water damage, another didn't have water damage, but had some water in the lens, so it was foggy. And it just was another factor that normally I don't have to deal with. So despite those challenges, it was really an incredible experience for me to get to put together this documentary. Most student films range from maybe 4 to 6 minutes. So it was a challenge to me, but also an incredible experience to get to document the Northwoods Expedition.
So I'm sure everyone now understands what an undertaking this expedition was for the Hawk Mountain Conservation Corps. Through the science conducted, the ambassadorship through service and education, and the immersion into this Northwoods wilderness, the HMCC team more than passed their final exam. I want to offer several individuals and organizations my sincere gratitude for making this journey happen. First, all the Hawk Mountain Sanctuary Board of Directors, staff, and the many volunteers that contributed to this program. The Nature Conservancy of Maine, primarily Director of Stewardship and Ecology, Nancy Cerfera, and Stewardship Field Assistant, Whitney Bush. Baxter State Park, with the primary contact, Ranger Bruce White. Gary Lockerman with Project Owlnet. Great amount of thanks to our additional mentors on the journey, wildlife instructors from Penn State Du Bois, Emily Thomas and Carrie O'Brien. Thank you to the HMCC families for allowing their children to be a part of this program. And the greatest amount of gratitude I want to extend is to the HMCC members themselves. Through the number of years that they were involved with the program, I have asked and pushed a lot on our sanctuary projects and through community involvement with the ambassadorship programming and all the other things that make this program unique. And so I want to thank them for allowing HMCC to play a small part in their high school experience, hopefully instilling a conservation ethic for their lifetime. So this concludes our Northwoods Expedition film. Thank you so much for viewing. To learn more about Hawk Mountain Sanctuary and how to support its mission and programming, please visit us on our website. Or better yet, visit us in person. Happy trails.
Okay, so again, thank you for tuning in with us to enjoy the first screening of the HMCC Northwoods Expedition. The Hawk Mountain Conservation Corps is currently in the process of being reestablished. For more information regarding that, please contact Steve Wade. That would be wade@hawkmountain.org. And for any questions regarding the Northwoods Expedition, please contact Todd or I. That would be bauman@hawkmountain.org or rauk@hawkmountain.org. Thanks.
And I'd also like to kind of add that this was one of the films of several that are out there available that were shot and done by the Hawk Mountain Conservation Corps in the past. So the first group have two films that they did. If you just Google Pack Rafting Pennsylvania, we're usually a #1 or #2 hit. You can enjoy that film. Also, the very first one that was kind of put out there was the HMCC Everglades Expedition blog. And it is a blog which is then finished, which is the first thing that comes in line, is a film, short film on that expedition. Then the last group, which that film is not yet completed, will be Pack Rafting Pennsylvania 2, The Circumference of Home, which I think when I finally get that done and you get to view it, you will see probably carries some of the greater challenges just due to weather. So thank you very, very much.